What is up, everybody? Zach Graham coming to you for FTN Daily, jumping in to week 11 of the NFL regular season and talking SuperDraft, where we're dealing with multipliers instead of your typical salary cap structure. If you haven't played on SuperDraft before, you can head over to ftndaily.com, read through our comprehensive site review, and then go to superdraft.io. You get registered and sign up. And when you deposit, make sure you use the promo code FTN. And on any deposit of $100 or more, SuperDraft is going to give you $100 in bonus funds. That's a great way to start your experience on SuperDraft. Let's jump into some of the Week 11 plays, and we'll start, as always, at the quarterback position. And a familiar name for this weekly video, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts, who's at 1.4x on SuperDraft this week. He's been looking better, both from a fantasy and a real-life perspective. Last week was kind of the first time he's put the two together. The multipliers coming up from where it has been in the last couple of weeks. So we always like to target that rushing upside at the quarterback position. So I like him at that 1.4x. But another guy who's been coming on of late, both in real life football and for daily fantasy, is the rookie Justin Fields. Matchup against Baltimore is not the best this week, but they've been beatable from a fantasy perspective. And Fields, 23 SuperDraft points on average over his last two games, which is much improved from what we saw from his first couple starts. Really getting out there, using his legs, obviously the coaching staff putting him in better positions to rack up fantasy points. And against the Steelers Monday night 2 weeks ago, made some fantastic throws. So things are looking up for Justin Fields at 1.7x. I like getting to him at that elevated multiplier. Moving over to the running back position, we're sticking close to that multiplier floor here this week with Christian McCaffrey at the 1x floor. Washington defense with no Chase Young sounds like a pretty appetizing matchup to me. And McCaffrey last week with a mixture of PJ Walker and Cam Newton under center. Sounds like Cam's going to start this week, but we've seen years of that with those two in that Carolina backfield. And last week, McCaffrey, 13 rushing attempts and 10 targets. So 23 opportunities. I think that's probably about the floor of what we see for CMC when he's healthy in this offense. So I love getting back to him even at the 1x floor multiplier. And then a little bit higher, but not too far, 1.3x, DeAndre Swift. We've seen Jamal Williams continue to struggle with this injury, wasn't healthy even coming off the bye for Detroit. And then Jamar Jefferson went down against Pittsburgh in that tie on Sunday. Swift, 33 carries with 6 targets, so almost 40 opportunities in that game last week. I don't think he really gets close to that ceiling, but I think 30 is well within the realm of possibility. And in this matchup against Cleveland, I think at 1.3x DeAndre Swift is a great target this week on SuperDraft. Looking at some of the wideouts, I'm looking more at a game stack rather than stacking my receiving targets with quarterbacks. And you can go to Ryan Tannehill or even Tyron Taylor, but I'm looking at these wideouts. First, A.J. Brown. 1.3x, obviously the matchup against Houston is juicy. They've been bleeding fantasy points at really every position so far this season. 2 down games, so I think in large field tournaments, the field is going to be off A.J. Brown, and you look back 3 and 4 games ago, he had 2 massive games, so I think this is a great get-right spot against Houston. Julio Jones still out on the IR, so I expect A.J. Brown to be fed a ton of targets here. And then on the other side, Brandon Cooks, 1.4x, maybe not the flashiest name right now in fantasy sports, but you can game stack him with A.J. Brown and one of those quarterbacks, as I said, if you want to get the full game stack. He's got Tyron Taylor back under center now, and coming off the bye, Brandon Cooks is quietly 9th in targets in the NFL, and we know his pedigree from his past stops with the New England Patriots, the Saints, etc. Brandon Cooks is an extremely talented wide receiver in a poor real-life football scenario, or situation, I should say. But from a fantasy perspective, he's been outstanding this year. And at 1.4x, I like him, particularly if you want to game stack that Houston-Tennessee divisional matchup. We'll finish up, as always, with the tight end position. And another floor multiplier guy that I like getting to this week is Travis Kelsey. He's back on the main slate, and he looked better last week from a real football perspective. He's been struggling with some drops, some fumbles in previous weeks, and really solid in that Sunday night game. 8 for 119. Didn't quite get in the end zone, but I think he's got the chance to not just score, but score multiple times anytime the Chiefs take the field. So a good high-paced matchup against Dallas. I like getting Travis Kelsey into some of my lineups this week. And then if you want that higher multiplier, a familiar name from this video, going back to Dan Arnold, 1.75x. He's kind of turned into the top target for rookie Trevor Lawrence in this bleak Jacksonville offense. Over 7 targets per week, though, in his last 4 games, and seen a red zone target in each of his last 3. So once Dan Arnold gets into the end zone, and he will at some point this season, at that multiplier, he could help vault you to the top of those tournament leaderboards. That's going to do it for me, but make sure you're tuned in to FTN Daily all week. We've got free super draft-oriented content, both for NFL and NBA, and all that content, again, is free. So make sure you're checking that out. That all culminates with the Super Draft Sunday study. Every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, myself, Vlad Sedler, Javi Perlezzo, Joe Metz. I've got a host of guests that come on with me and break down the slate for a half hour from a super draft perspective. You can catch that on the FTN Daily YouTube and Twitter feeds. And as always, good luck in your contest this week.